The air was still, save for the rhythmic creak-creak of old Tom Brown's massive oak rocker. It was a familiar sound on the porch, a steady beat in the quiet of the Ozark Mountains. Beside him, Cousin Rosemary sat on a simple wooden crate, a rhythmic scrape of a whetstone against steel filling the air as she sharpened a skinning knife with practiced, almost casual ease. Every movement was precise, efficient. Perched on Tom's mountain of a shoulder, the tiny Siamese kitten Sugar was unusually quiet. Her brilliant blue eyes were locked on the stranger sitting across from them, her whole body tense with observation. He was a lean man, an odd sight for three brothers. He wore a black frock coat that had clearly seen better days, the fabric worn thin in places. But it was brushed meticulously clean of the red Ozark dust that clung to everything. His mustache was sharp and well-groomed, a stark contrast to the weariness in his eyes. A silver-headed cane, elegant and out of place, leaned against his worn chair. He didn't look like he belonged here, not in the slightest. Yet he sat with the unnerving calm of a man who looked death square in the eye, and didn't so much as blink. He was at home in the discomfort. "Holiday," Tom Brown rumbled, the sound deep and resonant like shifting earth. His shaggy white beard, a wild thing in its own right, twitched with the word. "I heard you were down in Glenwood, healing up. What brings a man of your ... reputation? All the way up to the ridge?" Doc Holliday didn't answer immediately. He raised a silk handkerchief to his lips, and a dry, hacking cough shook his thin frame. It was a sound that spoke of smoky saloons and long, hard nights. When the fit passed, he tucked the handkerchief away, and his gaze shifted, not to the giant of a man addressing him, but to the tiny kitten on his shoulder. "I heard a rumor, Mr. Brown," he said, his voice raspy but clear. "They say there is a sentinel on this porch who can see a man's soul before he even speaks his name. In my line of work, that's a creature worth meeting." Sugar, as if understanding she was the topic of conversation, let out a low, vibration-heavy Siamese chirp. It wasn't a growl. There was no aggression in it. She didn't puff up her fur or hiss. She just hopped down with surprising grace from Tom's shoulder, her paws making soft thuds on the dusty porch floorboards. She walked directly across the space separating them, a deliberate and confident stride, and rubbed her cheek against Doc's polished leather boot. A low chuckle escaped Rosemary, who hadn't even looked up from her knife. The sound was dry, amused. "Seems she likes you, Doc. That's lucky for you." Sugar don't take kindly to men with lead in their hearts, by which she meant men with heavy consciences or ill intent. A ghost of a smile touched Doc Holliday's lips, barely visible beneath his mustache. He leaned back in his chair, the tension in his shoulders seeming to ease just a fraction. "I've spent my life surrounded by giants and outlaws, madam," he said, his tired eyes sweeping from Rosemary to the towering figure of Tom Brown. "But I've never seen a man as big as Tom, or a cat as small as—" Sugar held a whole mountain together so well. He seemed genuinely impressed, a rare thing for a man who had seen so much of the world's grit and grandeur. "We keep the peace, Doc," Tom said simply, his voice a gentle thunder. His giant hand, a hand that could snap a pine branch like a twig, reached out with impossible softness to pat the kitten as she hopped back up and returned to his side, curling into her familiar spot. "And the peace," Tom continued, his eyes meeting Holliday's, "is what keeps us." The words hung in the still mountain air, a simple truth as solid and unyielding as the rock beneath their feet. It was the law of the ridge, and the reason they were all still there.